So I want to talk about taking shortcuts in this business, and I do need to keep my voice down a little bit more than usual because baby's sleeping in the next room over. But this is a really important topic. It's actually come up recently in Sync Academy, and I've just seen a lot of producers try to do this stuff, and it always ends in their careers being basically blown up and destroyed and ruined. If not their entire career, at least a really good relationship with a library or two, it's burned because they're trying to take the wrong kind of shortcuts in this business. So there are shortcuts that I feel are good, that are healthy. They're going to actually help you and keep you in a really productive, forward moving momentum in this business. But there's definitely some shortcuts that producers try to take that are borderline violating contracts and sometimes borderline violating, copyright law. And so I want to really just specify in this video the at least top 3 shortcuts that I feel are horrible, terrible, don't do them, and 3 that I feel are safe, good, and really effective, actually will actually do better for you in your sync career. So that if you've ever had some of these ideas for different types of shortcuts you can take in this business and want to know, should you do it, maybe this video will help you decide if it's something you should actually go forward with. Okay. So let's start with those bad shortcuts. These are shortcuts in terms of making and producing music or trying to work with multiple libraries. And these are all going to be your fast track to get kicked the hell out of this business and to make enemies and burn bridges with music libraries. Okay. Number 1 is trying to create essentially any type of alt version of a completed track. Let's say we'll call it a completed track A, and you've sent this track off to an exclusive library. So going back to track A in your session in your DAW and trying to create any type of alt version of it. So you're basically, maybe you swap out, the lead guitar, you maybe switch out some of the samples a little bit, maybe you you keep most of it together, but you swap out some of the presets, but it's pretty much the same music. And then basically by not doing a lot of work, but altering the music just enough, you print that B version of it and try to send that out to a new library. I've seen many producers, or not many, but I've definitely seen some producers try to pull this stuff off, and that is the fastest way to get just burn all the bridges you've got in this business. Because basically what you're doing is you're not really putting new creative effort into the work, and you're trying to sort of put a new shine on a car and sell it twice. That's kind of what you're trying to do, which is borderline and pretty much violating probably some exclusive contract that you have with the library. Okay, so when you submit new music to a new library, just make sure that you're starting from scratch, right? Don't try to be creating alt versions of previous tracks that you did. There are ways that you can use previous tracks to help you get started on a new one for a new library, but we'll talk about the right way to do that. But simply going into your session, switching things up just a little bit or altering things enough where you're like, okay, well, it's not the exact same track as this one, so therefore now I've created a new piece of music. Well, it's going to be so similar and so identifiably similar that all it takes is for one library, to realize that the same, almost the identical track is also existing in another catalog, which is pretty easy to find these days. And boom, your reputation is just blown up, and basically you will no longer be working with that library. And there are obviously industry panels and industry get-togethers where a lot of these libraries share stories and horror stories and share stories of glory and war and all the fun stuff that goes on in this business. And guess what? Your name is getting passed around. I've known and seen names get passed around in this business of blacklist, do not work with, they do shady stuff. Don't do that. That's not a shortcut you want to do. Second shortcut is the even lazier version of that, is literally just retitling an exclusive track that got accepted by a library, just calling it something different and sending that same track off just with a new title to a second exclusive library, and trying to say, well, as long as they don't catch on to it, then I'm good because it's a different title and nobody will ever know. You might get away with it for a while. You definitely can get away with it for a while. But the minute, again, it just takes one person, one library exec or one intern essentially to notice something a little bit strange, and boom, you're basically, your relationship with that library is gone. That is absolutely violating an exclusive library agreement. That if you're sending the same track to a different library, just throwing a new coat of paint on it, but saying, oh, no, it's a completely new track, but it's really not, you're screwed. It's just not going to work out for you. And then the last shortcut is let's say you have this track that's completed, you send it off to an exclusive library, and then you maybe go in, keep all the music the same, but you just basically swap out all the instruments, all the VSTs. So this was a guitar, you like swap that out for a synth. This was a, I don't know, a bass, and you swap it out for like a bass synth or something like that. And you basically go, well, it's a completely different track, new sounds, it's identically musically, it's the same tempo, it's the same everything, but you just swapped out the sounds. Same issue. You're basically trying to, you're taking the wrong kind of shortcut. And with these three types of bad shortcuts, the one thing that I want to emphasize is that if you are constantly wanting to do these kind of things, or you're tempted to do these things, it's kind of like when I had this member that was asking about how to do this. It was like, okay, so what I hear is a producer saying, how can I not do a lot of work, or how can I like not produce music but still get into this business, right? How can I not create new music, and how can I not get into my DAW and craft and be in love with my craft and create new stuff? How can I not do any of that but still be a sync licensing producer? Which is like, it's like, well, I think you're missing the point of being a sync licensing producer. If you don't want to do the work, you don't want to craft, you don't want to create, you don't want to produce new music, maybe producing music is not what you should be doing with your life. Maybe there could be other things you can be doing, right? Because that is what the gig is, right? That is what we do. Is we actually, it's like saying I want to be a bus driver, but can I do it without getting into the bus and actually operating the controls and having to stop at every stop and actually having to operate this heavy machinery and deal with unruly passengers? Like, can I just be a bus driver without having to do any of that? Nope, you really can't. That is the gig. So if you're finding yourself wanting to take these kind of shortcuts where you're basically not creating, but just sort of doing a sort of misdirection and trying to get away with something, no, not going to happen. And maybe this is not the right business for you. So it might be just sort of a wake-up call for you. All right, let's go into the good shortcuts. So these are the shortcuts that I personally have used, and I encourage you guys all to use. These are the ones that'll actually, they'll still save you a lot of time, but they won't put you in legal jeopardy. They won't create any sort of situation where you could possibly burn a bridge with the library. In fact, these shortcuts will help you create stronger relationships with libraries, okay? Number one, you guys have heard me say this so many times, use DAW session templates, okay? So if you don't know what that is, stack up. Next time you create a track, do this, okay? If you don't use templates, next time you create a fully produced track, licensable track, let's say it's like an EDM pop track, something like that. Once you're done with it, save it, basically clear everything out. You've saved your session, all that kind of stuff. Clear all the music out, clear all the automation, clear it all, reset it all to zero, mixing and mastering faders always to zero. Save it as a template. I think every DAW program these days, you can save things as templates, and you just call that one EDM pop, or maybe it's a version of EDM pop celebration, EDM pop party, EDM pop, whatever, right? You can maybe even further classify it. Now, anytime you need to create an EDM pop track, load up that template immediately. All of your favorite presets and sounds, and maybe even some mixing plugins, are already there. And so you already have a sound palette that you know works. You already have a kick drum that you know works, a snare drum, synths that work out well. You have all of your side chaining things, everything's set up exactly how you want to. So how much time would that save you not having to go through and reload all of that stuff? I mean, this is hours and hours over the long run, right? So you should definitely be using those session templates. You should also be using mixing and mastering templates. So that means that like maybe on your mastering chain, you already have, this is what I do. I have a series of a few mastering plugins that I already know what they do. I like how they sound. I like what they work. Basically, everything is sort of zeroed out, but once I put them in there, they're all there. I just have to slowly tweak a couple of things here and there to sort of match the track that I'm working with, but my mastering process is literally a couple of minutes. It's maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes most. But if I had to go in and reload every single one and then decide for every single track, well, do I want an EQ on this mastering bus, or do I want a compressor? Do I need the stereo spread? If I have to make all these choices every single time I make a track, it just slows everything down. So your mixing and mastering process can be really streamlined if you have everything sort of set up already. All your plugins, your flow, if you're busing things to a certain sub bus, you can do all that stuff obviously preloaded into a template. So these are the kind of things that will save you time, but will still keep you on a path to doing some really great creative work, okay? And then the last is definitely collaborate with other producers, other instrumentalists, okay? So if you're finding that you're pretty slow to finish tracks, maybe one shortcut can be you partner with another producer. So if you're in Sync Academy, we have a collaborations group where you can literally go in there and shop around and try to find somebody that might be a good fit for you. So let's say that you're great at cranking out drums. You can produce some amazing, great hip hop drums, but putting the synths or guitars or stuff on top, you're a little slow at that. That takes you a lot longer to get the musical side of it. find that secondary producer, bring them on board, split things 50-50, and get faster at finishing up tracks. You just crank out the drums, you send it off to your partner, they finish the music, put it on there, you guys decide who mixes and masters, maybe you split that up also 50-50, or maybe one of you guys are a little bit more accomplished in that area. So collaborating is essentially a shortcut in this business, because not only does it help you get music done quicker, if you collaborate with a producer that's working with a library already, well, guess which library you get to get accepted into without having to pitch your music directly to them, because this producer will bring you right on board. They've already got the relationship. They'll pretty much guarantee to get your tracks into their catalog. So these are the shortcuts that can really help you be focused to get your tracks done quicker, but still create original content. Okay. And of course, I guess, those are the top three, but of course, using reference tracks is the best shortcut of all time, right? You guys know that I hound you guys on that. Finding a track within a catalog in a library that you want to work with, or that you at least find really high quality and licensable. That is your cheat code. It's right there. It's basically, you're sitting down trying to play Mario Brothers, but you don't know how to beat it. And it's literally, there's a cheat code, path and basically a guide sitting right there, and you're just not using it because you don't look up to look at it, right? So when you go find that blueprint, that guide, that completed track that's already been accepted by a library, it's already licensable, why would you not be basically just going to that every single time and sort of emulating it the best you can? Of course, not stealing its chord progressions, not stealing what it's doing musically, but you can use similar sounding drums, similar sounding strings, a similar structure, a similar tempo. There's a lot of things, and transition. There's a lot of stuff you can take as inspiration from those tracks, whilst being very, very clear, steering clear of royalty or copyright infringement or doing anything really dangerous legally, okay? So use those reference tracks. So just know that I've been around this business long enough to see a lot of producers and musicians try to take the unhealthy and the risky shortcuts. And I always wonder, what are you doing in this business if you're trying to always get away from making music? If the first instinct is, how do I not be creative and still be a part of this business? Let's maybe just zoom out a little bit and think about, should we really be in this business? Is this really the right fit for us if this is what we're trying to do? So anyways, this might help some of you guys make those choices, make the right choices, at least for yourself moving forward. So I hope this was useful for you.